So for this episode, we actually were planning to do guest, and I was going to call on my dad, but older people are hard to manage.
Let's just be honest.
Yeah. When I was asking him questions, he was getting into like, "Oh, my brothers were going through this at this point," and then I'm like, "Nobody cares about your brothers." Like,
Sometimes they also go into tangents that are like
just not
not
needed.
at all related to the
Yeah.
question, or there's like a preachy element. Like it takes some training. So
Lots
yeah,
of hand holding.
lots of hand holding. Hi everyone,
I'm Unaiza.
and I'm Amina, and welcome to the Migratory Pod.
What's the first stop in the spiral of your story? Today, we'll be going over my family history and kind of getting into, I guess, the structure of what many of our guest episodes are going to look like.
I don't actually believe I know the full story.
With me, it's a little bit more far back in time. My dad's the youngest of five siblings, and his oldest sibling is now 80 years old.
Oh my, okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
so they have like level age gap. So my grandfather was born in the 1920s,
Okay,
whereas most people's grandparents are born in the 1940s.
right.
So it's like, it's
Okay,
a
yeah.
throwback.
He's an old one.
He's an old one, yeah. I will try to do it as much justice as possible. But
Okay.
my grandfather was born in Karachi. Our, I guess, lineage goes back to India, Gujarat, to a part of Gujarat that's called Kathiawar. And specifically in Kathiawar, I know that when my dad was growing up, he would visit a town called Rajkot. So I'm guessing that's where we're from. I've heard mixed
Okay.
things from all of my dad's siblings. They all have different things to say that, oh, we were from Rajkot or we were from Jamnagar or anyway, that's, I guess, where my origins are from. I guess like
Okay.
way back before my great grandfather moved to Karachi. So he actually dropped out of school in grade two. So he has like the most rudimentary level of education, nothing too advanced.
Why'd he drop?
Poverty, like his family, I don't think could afford to keep him in school. And his dad, so my great grandfather, had a food stall that my grandfather would assist at.
Okay.
And then when my grandfather got old enough to work a job, he started in shoe sales. And that's kind of how he got into the shoe business, which is really where I guess our family picked up from. He started from like a street food
Yeah, yeah,
seller's
yeah.
son, and then he got into shoe sales, and eventually he basically saved up money from his shoe sales jobs to buy his own place, like a shoe shop. And the context of the shoe shop, if you know anything about the partition, is that at the time of the partition, a lot of people were moving either to India or to Pakistan, depending on their background. So there was a Parsi family, and Parsis, if you're not aware, are people that are Indian or Pakistani of Irani background.
Okay.
Yeah, and they actually have quite a big community in Karachi, but now dwindling, very dead. But Bombay was still at the time, I guess, a better place for them. So my grandfather bought a shoe shop from a Parsi family, not a shoe, I think it was a toy shop
Okay.
or something different, but he bought the storefront
Location,
from
yeah.
the location from a Parsi family. And at the time, he couldn't pay off like the whole amount. So he would deliver it in installments to that guy's sister who was still in Pakistan. Meanwhile, that guy had moved to Bombay. So partition kind of played a part in how my grandfather acquired that shop, because if they weren't leaving, they wouldn't have made the choice to give the shop up, right? And then my grandfather wouldn't have
Makes
got
sense.
it. But yeah, so the shoe business in Pakistan is really interesting. If you've been shoe shopping in India, I don't know if you have, or
I've shopped outfits, but not shoes, so I don't really know the context. Like I was gonna ask why shoes? Was it a random decision?
I do know that he did shoe sales jobs, so it was really something that he just knew and that he was good at. Um, but the like shoes in Pakistan, like when you go to a shoe store, they're so fascinating because there's like tens of like shoe salesmen and they're bustling around and it's very Karama vibes in the sense that
Dynamic, like,
very dynamic, yeah.
yeah.
In the sense that there's like people on the roof level
Oh,
of the shop and like they have like these openings in the ceiling tiles and they'll throw down like, oh, like I need a size 7 and then they'll throw down like a so very, very bustling. And the part of town that my grandfather's shoe shop was in was very much like the market area for all of these things, for
okay.
shoes, for clothes. Areas called Sadr still exists, but basically the hours were quite bad, very demanding. So I know that when he left the shoe business, it was very much a lifestyle choice as well, because at that time my grandfather was like doing really well. The Pakistani president basically told him like you should export your shoes because the materials my grandpa was using, he was really a visionary, so this will be like very much a little bit of a like oh my
A little
grandfather,
plug.
yeah, very much. But he was at that time, and this is like in the 40s and 50s up to the 60s, where my grandfather was maybe like one of the few people that were going to Italy to get materials for the shoes.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely
Yeah.
it's indicative of he knows the quality.
He knows the qual, and this is like from someone that like was the son of a street food seller, so he really had the vision, had
It's
and
more impressive than you think, especially at the time.
yeah, 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 that was his vibe, and
Right.
very much into like the luxuries of life. And I mean, he was associating at the time with like the actors and entertainers of Pakistan, politicians, like people that would come over to our house, my grandfather's house regularly, people that like normal people don't have access to,
Okay.
yeah. So he dropped the shoe business for parts, for car parts, for truck parts, because he kind of again had the vision that his sons, he had five, including my dad. He just had the vision that the shoe business wouldn't be it for them. It's way too demanding. It's something he could do, but he couldn't foresee his kids doing. It doesn't really have like that life of ease. It does in the sense that, it was very profitable, but it
Right.
wasn't something that was good for his health either. I think he really
Mm.
dropped it after certain health issues started coming to him, and I think he was around like 50 years
I
of
was gonna
age.
ask how long had he been doing it at that point?
I
From the
think,
age of
yeah, a good 25 years,
yeah.
25
Mm.
years. He basically kind of dropped it when my dad was growing up.
Okay.
So my dad was like 5 or 6.
Okay. That's a little sad. No.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit sad, especially with everything that shoes gave him.
Yeah.
But he was really able to build a lot of relationships with people. I think, especially meeting all the kinds of people that he got to meet. He was
Yeah.
selling luxury shoes, so he
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah. He
meeting
not only like up he like I guess took your family up a level
very much
and
so.
changed
Yeah.
the your network and everything around
Everything,
it.
everything.
Mm.
Yeah. So by way of basically selling luxury shoes, he met a lot of different people. And one of the people he met that basically got him into the parts world was like the king of parts at the time. And that guy kind of mentored him and told him like, oh, if you're looking to get your kids into this, I would suggest this. This isn't that saturated and that and that and that.
Okay.
Basically, at that point around the 60s, my grandfather kind of took a back seat from work and set up little shops, little stations for each of his sons, which whoever was capable of working at the time, which were some of my dad's older brothers.
Wait, there's vacuuming happening outside. Can you hear it?
Yeah, a little bit, but yeah.
So your dad got into the workforce and joined the business.
Yeah, but not immediately. My dad actually used to help his brothers out who basically had all these like different lines within the parts world. One of my uncles, I think, was selling radiators, and that uncle had another friend who was also in the business. And the way my dad, I guess, got into work was it's really interesting. When he was 18 years old, one of my dad's brothers, friends, like older brothers, at least 20 years older than my dad, basically gave him a task and was like, if you are able to sell 1,000 pieces of my product, this radiator. I think it was called Awami radiator. That's the brand of the. A very unnecessary detail, but he
Okay.
was like, if you're able to sell 1,000 pieces of this radiator, I will give you a round trip ticket to Singapore, Taiwan, Malaysia,
Oh my God. So it was a
and all.
challenge?
It was a challenge,
That's so
and my
cool.
dad at the time was very,
I'll do it. Like,
I'll
give me
do
it.
it, like super
Cocky?
cocky guy, very, very, very much. So he was like, yeah, I'll do it. And at the time, he was always like looking for these challenges. So my dad made these like 1,000 pieces of radiators sell like hotcakes. He went to, I think, Bangladesh for this deal and ended up like finishing them up in like seconds. So when he came back, he was owed that trip. He had already been to Singapore. Again, like at this point, my grandfather had made quite a bit of money, so they used to vacation to places. My dad has like definitely like traveled, been much more traveled than anyone I know. Like even at this point, like where travel is
Really?
super accessible to people, right?
Yeah.
At that point, like he had already like seen a lot of Europe, and for someone that's like from Pakistan, that's like quite rare, but I guess this is just to define the way that they were, you know.
Yeah, the shoe business helped him sort of travel and move around. Like that business took him to places that
Yeah, I
it
think
opened his view.
definitely. Yeah. I think especially with what my grandpa was trying to do with like making it a luxury brand and making
Mm,
it very luxury centered, he did have to go shop around to places where that brand appeal would be there. Like, oh, my leather is made in Italy or my
yeah,
materials are from here, blah, blah, blah. So he had to do some traveling for procuring those materials. And then, it gave him access to like a whole other world. So my dad had been to Singapore before, and that was part of the challenge that he wanted to go there again. And when he went there again, this was when Singapore was really, really booming around the 80s.
mm,
So if you know anything about the Asian tigers, which are, Singapore, Taiwan, Hong Kong, those places were industrializing super
yeah,
fast and had skyscrapers and like all the neon lights and everything, we see about those countries today. They've had them for like 40 years.
yes,
They've been
yes.
so far ahead.
It's so bizarre how it's undocumented a lot. Like it's just not in everyone's like frontal awareness of
Yeah.
how Asian cities are. But I digress.
Exactly. And China gets a lot of its inspiration from these Asian tigers because at that time, these Tokyo booming.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the model that China went for.
I'm
But
pretty sure, sorry, I'm pretty sure Dubai took some inspo as well, by the
for
way.
sure.
Like
Yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
sure. Yeah. Singapore is probably the closest city to Dubai, I think.
No, I think you're definitely right. And then Singapore was a really big trading hub back in that time, and then Dubai kind of took its place. Like
Right, right, right.
Singapore was the place that things went through, and then
Yeah.
now Dubai has become that port city in Asia or in the
Yeah.
center of that world. But I think again, I just don't want to ignore this because you bring up a good point. I think people in North America just don't know because
Mm.
we've been again fed this idea that there is so much gold in this part of the world and you have to come here to succeed. But like
Yeah.
they've been doing it, they've been running at the speed of light and achieved all of this 40, 50 years ago.
It's
You're
so
behind.
no, no, exactly. It kind of it applies to a lot of other areas of the world versus how the US portrays them. It's like I remember when I said it sounded like that's the first time that marketing became a thing, which is how you put like influence public opinion, market them for your objective, for what you want to like get out of it. And I feel like that's what like almost the first known example of it is like how they portrayed Asia and Arab countries and all of that.
Exactly. Like othering people
Othering,
that
what's the word?
do not look like you constantly.
Yeah, anyone who is anything different from like the prototype American.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure like a lot of Cold War politics had so much to do with this, but that's
Yes.
a whole other tangent. But my dad went to Singapore on this trip, and I think as an 18-year-old, it really opened up his eyes to like lots of possibilities. So when he came back to Pakistan, he convinced his parents that like, let me go, give me some money. I will go there and I will make bank and I will do my best. Let me go. He was
I'll make
18.
back.
Yeah, he was 18. I think this was in 1986. And he went to Singapore and it was great. He learned a lot, he did a lot, but he didn't make as much money as he thought he would. So that kind of flopped. And then there were other reasons, but he basically managed to get PR. It's so sad when I think about it now. I'm like, you got permanent residence for like one of pretty much the best passport to have now in the world. Like, if he had held on to it, I would be
Yeah.
Singaporean. But
Wow.
it's so sad.
Yeah, it was right there.
It was right there.
What happened then?
My dad got called back to Pakistan by like family because he was 26 and not married yet and all of that. And I think, at the time that
Hmm.
was something they wanted to prioritize also because his social habits were not the best. So they were like, nope, come back. You need a wife. She needs to
Mm.
fix you. So he
We
came
need to
back.
tame you.
We
By
need
the
to
way, can
tame
I
you.
ask, did he bring the auto business to Singapore? Or did he just, manage something else on his own?
He did a whole bunch of different things. He was a hustler. I know that he sold onions as well. Like he bought a container from India and that was not good. He got scammed. Like someone kind of
Oh,
convinced him to invest in like the shipment of
onions.
onions. And
Okay.
onions like decrease in volume. So
Okay. I didn't know
I
that.
don't know what happened, but somewhere in that process that
Mm.
didn't go well. And so when they got the onions, they were like scraps,
Oh my goodness.
and
Okay.
that just didn't work out. So yeah, got bamboozled there, but I know he stuck his hand into a whole bunch of different pots, like was doing a lot of things for his brothers as well when he was in Singapore. Um, but my dad at the time, like the stories I hear from him, like I think at the time for work, he made over 200 trips to Japan, like from Singapore to, which is unprecedented. And if anybody from Pakistan wanted to visit that part of the world, my dad was their go-to guy. Like he was an escort.
Wow.
He was doing some really, really cool things and he had met like the heads of some really big companies like in the parts world, especially in Japan, and some of those relationships still exist. Like my sister was telling me there's this one company that's based in Japan that because of the relationship that my dad and my grandfather built with them, they do not take advances from them till date. So my
Mm.
dad can place orders and no like deposits need to be
Wow.
made. And this is unheard of in their world. So there's just like 50
Mm.
years of really good relationships. My dad's been working now, I think, since he was 18 and he's almost 60. So, like a good 40 something years. And then the work that my grandfather also did. And, it's a legacy. But,
Wow.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
not a long time to build such strong connections. That's very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. But again, it was a lot of the things that my grandfather had already
Mm,
established
yeah, yeah, yeah.
before my dad got into the workforce. So, a lot
Still,
of
he
like
maintained it, and
he
he maintained to
maintained
this
it.
day.
Yeah. To this day, even like with some of the Italians that they used to work with, like even today, my sister was a couple days ago telling me that she went to a trade show with my dad and they passed by like the stall and my dad was like, "Oh, this is my daughter." And they were freaking out because they've seen like generationally my grandfather, then my
Oh my
dad, and now my daughter,
God.
and they were like
Wow.
freaking out about it and they were like, "Oh my God, bellissima, bellissima." And just fangirling over
Wow.
her and it was really cute. But yeah, a lot of work that my grandfather put in showed up for my dad and
Yeah.
now it's showing up for my sister. So it's really cool that way. But he spent 6 years in Singapore, learned a lot, did a lot of cool things.
Your dad definitely had an eye or noticed the cuisine there as well. And I know he was influenced, like his taste was influenced, and he took a lot back home with him. But yeah, that's a whole other episode.
Yeah.
It definitely had an impact on him for life.
For sure. I think a lot of like the Singaporean ways of doing things are still with him. For a very long time, it was so hard for me to gauge what the fuck my dad's accent was.
Really?
'Cause- Yeah, because he speaks so like strangely. And then I got there's like a tinge in his accent. When I went to Singapore, I was like, oh, that's what it is. So he did pick up a
Wow.
lot, and it stayed with him. I think it says something like
Yeah.
because he was pretty much living this life from the beginning. He has like that itch to scratch, like for movement, and I think that kept it going.
I'm sorry, it really does rewire your brain.
It does. You have that too, right? Like where you kind of want a clean slate, fresh start because we've
Yeah.
had it so many times.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that it's possible, and if there's a will, there's a way, but like that's always an option that sometimes gets not considered by the average person, even though it's possible for them too. But I like cannot stay in the same city or country for longer than maybe, I don't know, 5 years, and then like I'm done.
Yeah, and it brings you so much depth of experience because you get to see all of these
Yeah.
different things, like the world operating in so many different ways. Things are no longer that same one way that you always kind
Yeah.
of saw them, and I've never seen them that way. So this way of life where you have like roots to one place is very, very hard for me to digest.
Yeah.
Hopefully getting out of here, but you know.
Inshallah.
Yeah, so he was in Singapore for 6 years, moved back to Karachi to get married to my mom. Um, I think when he was married to my mom, there were a lot of security things happening in Karachi. Karachi used to be like quite a safe place. Like when my grandfather was doing the shoe business, it was really like a booming place. Little known fact about Karachi, like it was operating one of the best airlines in the world at that time,
Oh,
PIA, which right now is a fucking joke. But at the time, it was so good that Emirates sought out support when they were doing their first flight operation from
really?
PIA. Yeah. Um, Even the flying code, the EK, the flight code for Emirates is Emirates to Karachi because Emirates' first like inaugural flight was to Karachi. And
Oh,
this is because PIA gifted their plane to Emirates for their fleet.
okay.
So
For their
yeah,
for their very
yeah.
first one.
Yeah, and so like
Oh,
now you see Emirates and you see Karachi, but lots of things happened in Pakistani politics that led to the nosedive and where Pakistan kind of is today. So in the 90s, Pakistan was not in a great place, and there were a lot of security issues as well, and specifically in Karachi. And my dad was with my mom. They were, I think, driving, and my mom was pregnant with me and they got pulled over by robbers. And I think, yeah, and my dad had been back from Singapore, like I think now 2 years at this point, or 3 years, and that was like, nah, like for him, it was not where he came from.
oh, okay. So he was like, I'm not dealing with this.
Yeah, I'm not dealing with this, and
Yeah,
I think
okay.
that's kind of what led him to
Mm,
eventually making an exit from Pakistan. But yeah, he spent
okay.
basically no time there.
So threat evasion purposes.
Yeah, threat evasion, opportunity seeking as well, because I think he wanted to, he saw potential in Dubai.
How did that pop into your dad's head from Singapore to Karachi to Dubai? Like, where did Dubai come from?
So my dad had, one of my dad's brothers at the time was in Fujairah, but my dad tells me this wasn't the reason. He had this Indian friend in Singapore who was raised in Afghanistan and did a lot of trade. I forget of what, but they used to send a lot of things from Afghanistan to Singapore, and then
Okay.
they were in the business of exporting whatever the thing was. I don't know what it was. I've forgotten now. But that person kind of moved their operations to Dubai. So my dad took it. And a lot of people that were in the trade that were getting materials or whatever this product was from Afghanistan, which now I have to, it wasn't drugs.
No, no.
Whatever it was, they basically shifted all of their operations to Dubai from
Mm,
Singapore. And so for my dad, that like was like a green light and
okay.
kind of clicked in his head.
Yeah.
And yeah,
It's a trend, by the way. It's like one of the primary reasons for choosing a place to migrate to is because you have family there, you have some type of connection, like another human that you know that is physically there. That's going to like exponentially increase the likelihood of you moving there.
yeah. Exactly. Nothing happens in a vacuum. So that really like cemented things for him when he saw a lot of people moving their trade to Dubai. He was like, okay, I was doing similar things in Singapore and now I have the opportunity to kind of operate a base from Dubai and Dubai did become that place for him because he had access to all of Middle East, North Africa, and then lots of parts of Asia, which he was already doing. But yeah, Dubai was a great place for growth. And like I said, we were business TCKs, so you kind of move without, the packages from your employer.
Yeah.
Everything is self-researched, the housing, the schooling, living, everything. So there was a lot of figuring out to do.
How old were you? It was year, you said early 2000s.
Early 2000s, so I was 5 years old, 4 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember I moved from there
2000.
before. 1999, sorry. Yeah.
1999.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Early 1999, so I think I was three and something,
Okay.
turning
Um,
four.
I can't even like picture. Actually, that it just it's hitting me now that you've like lived in Dubai in the 90s. Like even
Yeah.
if it's for 1 year, like you saw what that was like. You saw
Yeah.
it before me. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
I lived in Sharjah. That's where we started. Started
Okay.
from Sharjah and then to Dubai.
I started my Dubai school in Sharjah too, so I feel you.
Yeah. I feel like everybody starts in Sharjah. They're just too
Yeah.
embarrassed to say it 'cause
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There are some people that are still in Sharjah that will not
yeah.
say it. I don't know why.
Yeah. Yeah.
So high school happened, we graduated. You came over to Toronto, and then your parents made the move out of Dubai. What was that like?
Heartbreaking because I at that point like grew up in Dubai and it was just so sad, especially when you're away. And I think you've been through this a little bit being in Toronto and now your family is moving from the home that you grew up
That I
in.
grew up
Like,
in.
yeah, pretty much after I was 18, I didn't have access to my childhood bedroom. And like, I don't feel
Yeah.
at home in this adult bedroom. This is not like where I made my memories.
Yeah.
So it was very sad. I miss it a lot, and I feel like I didn't get the opportunities to go back as much as other people did, because you have your family, so you have a reason to go back. So
Yeah.
I didn't really do that. My sister did make like pilgrimage for personal reasons. She had like people to see and relationships to maintain. I do
Mm,
that virtually mostly,
mm.
but it was hard. It was definitely really hard. Especially because like at that point, when my parents moved to North America, I kind of knew what North America was. So like the rose tinted lens by which people see North America was gone for me.
Yeah, that's true because we forgot to mention that you did actually live in the US for 1 year while you were in Dubai.
Yeah,
Like how old were you?
I was 12.
12, right? And this
Yeah.
is what we're referring to as like this is the time when I was exposed to pregnant teenagers.
Yeah.
It was during this year. So you had already seen North America. You knew what to expect, kind of.
Yeah, I was in this city in Central Florida called Kissimmee, but that was really rough because I wasn't living the life that I was living in the UAE, and irrespective of how hard it was for other reasons, like the US was like
Yeah, yeah.
compared to anything in the East, this is not life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, barely spending time with my mom because she was working like three jobs. And then the school experience was awful. Like,
Mm.
kids in middle school were bringing in condoms to class and showing them to people and stuff. And which is fine. Like you do you, but like
Condoms in class.
they were definitely doing something with those condoms because
Oh
there
yeah,
were
for sure.
pregnant teenagers in my. But it was shocking for
Yeah,
me
no, of course.
because I grew up in an environment where you don't even know what you have to do to get pregnant at that age,
Yeah.
and then there were like people that were actually physically pregnant. So yeah, I think that's what like kind of shook my mom, and my mom was like, "Nope, can't do this." I knew that North America was not it. I knew that my parents are like my dad especially it was like really like, "Oh, like the US, land of opportunities, blah
Mm.
blah blah," which it is. Like you can make a lot of money here, but it's like the family values are dead, culture is trash. I don't want to
Marketing.
marketing. Yeah, the marketing works.
Yeah. Like, sure, there's opportunities, but
At what cost?
yeah, and also I'm questioning since when is it the best?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And best for who? It's been a huge compromise and a sacrifice, and life is lonely. And even, when I look at community things like the Smiley community here, because there's maybe so many Smileys that like it just doesn't feel as tight knit. Whereas in Dubai, like I
Mm.
felt like I was going home when I would go to Jamaat Khana, which is where Ismailis do their congregational prayers. And I would go there pretty much every day, but like everybody in the community.
Yeah.
I think because people live such like robotic, monotonous lives here, not out of their own will. I think there's no choice in that. Like everybody kind of operates here like a robot.
Yep.
So it's very in and out. Nobody is building connections. No one's
This is
making
coming from
ties.
an outside view. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like if you've been there your whole life, you might not realize how slave-like the lifestyles can be, or very, yeah, systematic, robotic, the same thing every day. So we're just providing like our
Yeah.
view.
Yeah. And I think in the East, there is like a big culture of gathering. Like
Hmm.
people stay places longer than I guess what's prescribed here. Like
Yeah.
here, you grab a coffee and you're out of the coffee shop or you're just sitting there to work. But in where we're from, coffee houses are a place of gathering. You play
Yeah.
cards, you sit down, you
Yeah.
you chat for hours, you connect. Even over shisha, which is now like a growing thing here, and that culture is being explored and experienced here locally through Arabs.
Mm.
But we've grown up seeing that culture of gathering, and it
Yeah.
extends to places where like that gathering is not found here. Like even in Jamaat Khana, like I was saying, people go to pray and they're out. It's not really a community space, you know.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Whereas I know, like, growing up, it was always that for me. It was a place of gathering. And it's funny, my cousin in Karachi tells me that it's not like that in Karachi either, where it is quite in and out. And he felt like the community that you feel in Dubai. And I think that might have to do a little bit with like gathering culture in the Arab world in general.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. I know it
Um.
exists to some extent in Pakistan, but not to like the extent that this kind of community building happened in
Right.
Dubai.
I think that could be because of two things. Either, yes, the some sort of influence from Arab gathering culture, but also we had spoken about Dubai being like unique, and I think people stick to each other in even more tight-knit communities because they're all not from there, and so it's hand holding, it's staying together, it's forming families outside of home. Knowing all of that in mind, I'm curious if North America was all that, why did your dad leave Dubai then? Like, why was the whole family moving?
I think because he had missed the boat for the Singaporean passport, I think that kind of like itched at him, like where he was like, no, like now we've got to get a good passport. The security, like the only option when you're in the UAE is your home country, right? Like, especially if you don't have a solid passport, like I know you have the Canadian background, so there's always something to fall back on. That work my dad should have done way before
Mm.
before he was married to my mom, but he decided. I don't know if I'd have been born even in those circumstances because
Mm.
things really needed to happen a specific way. Even if he married my mom and stayed in Singapore to get that passport, I wouldn't have been born because they would have made another baby at another time and it wouldn't have been me. So why am I complaining?
Is that something you want to beep or like guide me here?
I don't know. I'm just saying it. This is going to be an interesting transition because I tied up my hair.
We take breaks.
Yeah, we take breaks.
He found the next best place for a passport, essentially.
Yeah, found the next best place. He tried for Canada too,
Did
but
he?
yeah, I think like the work opportunities in Canada are not that great for business people.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't gonna work out. But the US was great. And then Houston has the largest Pakistani population in all of North America. So again, very natural considering, the kinds of things we hear about, like why people make moves. And there are also a lot of Ismailis. Dallas was another one. No cold climates. They couldn't really deal with that. So it was really between Texas, California, even. But we settled for Texas.
Okay. For anyone wondering, like you can't get nationality in the UAE. I don't know if that's what you were kind of gonna say earlier on, but
Yeah,
okay,
you
yeah.
can't get nationality in the
Yeah.
UAE.
So that's not an option, like regardless. It's you're an expat or you leave.
I still very much have ties to Karachi by way of having my extended family there. My dad could have moved there, but again, I think that passport was really driving that decision.
Are we looking for a new move soon?
Yeah, so my dad is actually considering moving back to Asia. I think he's very, very connected. Like his heart feels very much at home in East Asia. So he's thinking, I don't want to jinx any of his plans, but he's thinking in the next couple of years to get a place in Bangkok and just move there with my mom. He has a lot of ties there. He knows it like the back of his hand. Like he's been going now for 40 years. Like there are like shop owners and restaurant people and that like are now so old and they still recognize him from when he was younger and used to go and
Wow.
stuff. So he wants to move, and it's like an excellent retirement destination. And it's only a 4 or 5 hour flight from Pakistan, so he can pop by and like go back to family. And now all of us have our passports, so we can peace out
Any day now.
any day now.
And then my last question is, even though this is not a guest episode, we're gonna just pretend that Unaiza is our guest. What defines home for you?
People, I think. Home is a lot of times very defining to who you become as a person. And for the longest time, when I was in Toronto and even after I moved here, I used to consider Toronto my home because it really made me who I was. But now I think if it contributes to any part of your personality and cements it in a way, it does become home.
Whoa, I love that. So if the city has had an impact on you permanently,
Yeah.
oh,
Toronto did that for me in very interesting ways. It made me like do a lot of uncomfortable things. For the first time in my life, I was exposed to that kind of climate, the snow and the very harsh winters. And so bundling yourself up, packing yourself up in layers and stepping out of the house. It's such a fight. There was so much resistance to it, but now I absolutely love it. I made like winter walks a thing for myself and I would do really long distances in the winter more than the
I
summer. I really,
know.
really grew to love it. But I think that's what Toronto made me. It made, and there were a lot of very uncomfortable things that I have always kind of been. I think a lot of people have their comfort zones, but I think that the winter and experiencing the winter in that way and eventually making myself love the hard thing
Yeah.
is what Toronto taught me. And so now I'm a little bit easier with like opening the door to the hard thing, and
Yes.
Toronto did that for me.
I think there is something to say about perhaps like growing up in Dubai, we might have been sheltered from a lot. We haven't really been challenged in a lot of ways. Like,
I think this is so true of a lot of TCKs. Like a lot of people I've spoken to, even without the Dubai background, actually, they feel like they're mature and ahead of their peers in so many ways, but then behind in so many others.
yeah, there's so much development that like we can credit back to Dubai, but I didn't really learn conflict resolution very well. Like I didn't learn how to find resourceful solutions to everyday problems. It was Montreal for me, my equivalent, is where like I stepped out of my comfort zone and I learned all of that.
Yeah, you live and you learn.
You live and you learn.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be signing off. I thank myself and Amina for having me and my story. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. We really appreciate your support. As well, we're everywhere that you listen to your podcasts. And if you would like your support to go a little bit extra, because all of this does take investment of time, money, resources, we are on Coffee, which is it's a website. It's ko-fi.com slash the migratory. We have posted this as a link on our Instagram bio.
Yep.
So you can provide some monetary support if you're willing. We would really appreciate that.
Thank you in advance. And yeah, thanks for listening. I'm Amina.
And I'm Unaiza, and we'll see you at
See
the
you at the
next
next
stop.
stop.